Okay, so in this video, this is just going to be another example on how to read a scale and report scientific measurements the proper way. So if you look over here on this left side, I've drawn this graduated cylinder and this blue, you know, circular, it's supposed to be, circular, but, tilted, so it's not exactly in the plane of the screen, so it doesn't really look like a circle. It looks more like a football-shaped, oval. Anyway, that's supposed to be the meniscus, so, imagine that the rest of this was just filled with liquid down here, and that this is the meniscus, and, by now you probably know that when we read volumes, we always read the bottom of the meniscus. If it's on glassware, we're just going to assume this is glass. If it's on plastic, then the meniscus is probably going to be concave up, but that's really not important for the purposes of this lesson. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to follow the steps that we followed in the first part. And the first step is to find the distance between two sequential marks. So what's that distance? Well, if we look, and this is in milliliters, very important by the way. If we look between marks 5 and 6, we can see that this distance here is 1 milliliter, right? 6 minus 5 is 1 milliliter. But we want 1/5 of that. And the reason why we want 1/5 of that is because there are 5 marks that separate these two marks. Do you see it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is actually going in 1/5 increments. And 1/5 of 1 milliliter is actually going to be 0.2 milliliters. Okay, so that's the distance between two sequential marks. Now we need to divide that by 10. Pretty easy. Just move the decimal point one place to the left, and that becomes 0.02 milliliters. Now we're almost done with the uncertainty part. We just have to express this as plus or minus. So it's going to be plus or minus 0.02 milliliters. And that is our uncertainty. So the second part, we're going to determine the certain digits. So if we look at this, by the way, it would appear that this is an upside down graduated cylinder, but it's not necessarily a graduated cylinder. This could also be a burette, and sometimes on some instruments it doesn't actually read to you the volume, the contents of the container. Instead, it reads to you, how much of it has dispensed out of it. So just keep that in mind. This could be one way or another. It doesn't necessarily have to be going in ascending order from the bottom to the top. So with that in mind, well, what are our certain digits going to be? Well, it would appear that 5 is definitely a certain digit. And it would also appear that 0.2, this first mark here, this corresponds to the point 0.2. That's also going to be significant, or excuse me, certain. So 5.2, the way I like to express this is 5.2 something. And in just a little bit, we're going to figure out what. So step 3 is to estimate how many tenths this meniscus lies. We're going to approximate that. So, well, what does that look like to you? It's kind of hard to see because it's a little small, but to me it looks like it comes before the next mark. So I'm going to assign it a value of 9/10, or the digit will be 9. Now what we're going to do is we're going to multiply that by our uncertainty. So 9 times 0.02 milliliters, and that's going to equal 0.18 milliliters. So now we're on to the final step, which is just putting it all together. Whoops. Tilted the camera there for a minute. So putting it all together, our certain digits, those are 5.2, and we're going to add that to this guy right here, so 0.18 milliliters. This is also in milliliters. And that result is going to be 5.38 milliliters. Now, remember, this is not correct entirely. What you need to do is stick back your uncertainty. Remember, it must contain the uncertainty and the units. So the uncertainty is over here. So I'm sticking that back into my final answer, which is going to be 5.38 plus or minus 0.02 milliliters. So hopefully that sheds a little more light on how to read a scale and how to express measurements based on these simple rules. At first they don't seem simple, but after a while it'll probably become second nature, to do these calculations in your head and things like that. Alright, I hope this helps.